Hello and welcome back to Disney Journey. Walt Disney's famous quote is that it's kind of fun to do the impossible. But I would add to that, it's really easy to do the impossible when you know how to do it. And every single new project that presents a challenge. And that's what this show is all about. This episode is going to be focusing on the challenges of a particular project, one that we know, which is Toy Story Land. And that's going to begin now.
When people create, they draw from their childhood memories, which does help to explain why the Barrel of Monkeys made its way into the movie Toy Story. Now, Toy Story was a very successful movie. It spawned many, many sequels and another to come. But among them as a connective tissue were always the Barrel of Monkeys. The Barrel of Monkeys proved to be a useful device as a connective tissue through all of the movies. But it also led to something. The Imagineers had already been partnering with Pixar to create Flicks Funfair, their DCA, a major expansion at the time when, well, DCA needed something. Flicks Funfair was very successful. It had a lot of oversized props and play areas. And this became an inspiration for what was going to happen next there in Paris.
Heimlich crawled back to Glendale, and today you can see him in the gardens of the Disney Imagineering campus there in Glendale, California.
The home that Heimlich left required a lot of experimentation in order to realize and fulfill the vision of that movie. But this wasn't the first time Disney and WDI had done this. Way back when they invented the Rivers of America, that sandy soil there in Anaheim had to be lined with bentonite clay, which wasn't preferred, but it was cheap, much cheaper than gunite or shotcrete, or even concrete. And so, with this history behind them of successful invention, when the phone rang, the Imagineers knew how to create the Toy Story Funhouse, which was a temporary exhibit there in the El Capitan. Now, the exhibit was so successful, the temporary props were moved to Tomorrowland in Anaheim. Now, as I underlined a moment ago, they're temporary. They were never built to last. So, when the time came to create something permanent, they had to go in another direction. Now, Discoveryland and all of Euro Disneyland needed some help when it first opened. They had a need for restaurant capacity. And so, as a result, what came out of that was to build a new little restaurant, the Pizza Planet. And as part of the Pizza Planet were a set of toys that were themed around, well, off-the-shelf slides and walkways and crawl-throughs. And that in turn led to this project. The Disney Hollywood Studios were creating a new area called, well, Pixar Studios. And that was going to be the home of Toy Story Mania. And in that area were going to be a number of props. Now, the props were of varying quality. The manner in which they created the barrel didn't look like plastic. It looked like someone had taken a wire brush and pulled it across foam, creating a sense of burrs, which is nice if you want to do wood. But for plastic, it wasn't going to fly. And so that is how I became the creative designer for Toy Story Playland, set to open in Disneyland Paris. The project was a short burn, only had a year to design it. And the idea behind it was basically Andy's backyard. And so I created a little story that I would go and pitch every single time I would talk to anyone. And accordingly, it was supported by sketches and the mantra that if you can see it, it's a toy. The mantra and the design books proved invaluable because eventually the project went out and grew because it went from just a small team of people to hundreds involved to create it. But the question was, all right, now we're going to do a Barrel of Monkeys. How do you do that?
I made multiple trips to Europe with a suitcase full of toys because it quickly became apparent to me that the vendors who were charged with building the toys did not know what American toys looked like.
I work with a team of global vendors in order to create and achieve and deliver Toy Story Playland. One of the largest and one I spent the most time with, though, is UK Loco, located outside of Birmingham, England. I would spend many months living there, working from my desk, redlining drawings, because again, the idea was everything that you saw had to look like a real toy. No matter that it had to be structurally sound, it had to have electrical, even security cameras. It didn't matter. At the end of the day, it had to look like a toy. And so made a lot of Tinker Toys and also made a lot of monkeys. Now, the interesting thing about location of UK Loco is it's near the Cotswolds. And if you know your pottery, you'll know that Cotswold has beautiful clay. And so it was a water-based clay that once we created this steel template of what a monkey would look like and did video of how the monkeys would hold and link arms, well, that was pretty simple. It was a lot of work, but it was pretty simple. Today, those monkeys live here in my office. I can look over and visit them anytime. Anyway, back to the monkeys. They swung in real life, in toy life, and so they had to have pivot points where they could swing while being structurally sound. And the connection proved itself capable of standing up against hurricane force winds, both in Florida and in Paris. In Paris, the Scrabble tiles were held by the feet of the monkeys, and on them they said goodbye or welcome, depending on whether you're entering or leaving. They were just outside this steel barrel, which became the Barrel of Monkeys. Eventually, I boarded a plane from Birmingham and relocated to Disneyland Paris, where I spent months standing in the fall, in the winter, and in the summer to create Toy Story Playland. It was a hoot. Whether it was the Lincoln Logs being lifted into place or locating where the Pixar ball would be located, or the glider, or Slinky Dog, it didn't matter. It was all fun. Hard, but fun. But the day came that Toy Story Playland finally did open to the public. Deep in the project schedule, the go-ahead was given to Ratatouille, which luckily I was working on as well. And there the solution was to create a gateway, a smash cut. Toy Story would have the pure barrel, and on the Ratatouille side, it would have an arch, a Parisian arch, with the figure of Gusteau above it. The figure really had a second life, though, and it's there today in Shanghai Disneyland on Mickey Avenue. But back to this. The Barrel of Monkeys also had a lid, because all barrels do. And this lid became the lid which became the retail shop. Even before Toy Story Playland opened, the powers that be decided they wanted another one. And so the second Toy Story Land went, of all places, into Hong Kong Disneyland. Because they like monkeys too. Their additional capacity program had 3 components, but Toy Story Land was the first. And there they'd also had, again, a Toy Story monkey barrel, but this one was used as a shelter for the character greeting. The next Toy Story Land was going to be in Shanghai Disneyland, to open 1 year after the park did. This time, though, it took a little bit different approach, because this one I also had a chance to really rethink, to find out what worked and what maybe could be improved. And so I did a lot of work with the development of the layout and the prop toys that were all going to be scattered throughout the land. The figures were built there in Shanghai, China, and so of course I spent a lot of times living in Shanghai, working with the creative team and the production team there to get everything just right. Once more, our friend the monkeys made an appearance. This time, again, on their monkey barrel. Toy Story Playland, Toy Story Land, doesn't matter what you want to call it. Every time it's been opened in each of the 4 locations and 2 hotels, it's been successful because everyone is or has been a child, and everyone is or has played with toys. It's a common denominator that cuts across cultures and language and age. Whether it's Jessie, Woody, or whoever, they all resonate with the guest. And everyone has been successful. Has been successful in surprising ways. For example, the checkerboard that became a backdrop for many, many photos on social media, or the figure of Jessie, the cowgirl. Standing in front of Jessie is intuitive. You don't need a plaque or directions or text to tell you what you're supposed to do. And many, many people come to the park to strike this pose. The senior executives were very pleased. So it was normal to expect that yet once again, those monkeys would be making one more appearance, this time heading back to the west coast of California.
One of my lessons as an Imagineer is if I'm not pressing the envelope, if I'm not stretching the idea to the point of breaking, I probably didn't do my job, because every new idea has risk. The question is whether they're manageable risks or unacceptable risks. And you really don't know that until you plunge in. Now, it's not safe to do that. It's not safe to do a new idea because ideas carry risk, but they also carry great rewards.
Those monkeys stayed gainfully employed. Of all places, they made another appearance. This time they're going back to Paris where it all began, to Disney's Adventure World. Now, this rebranded, renamed park is an expansion of what was originally Disney Studios Paris. But as part of that, they're building, of course, a massive lake in what was forever a parking lot. In fact, my office used to be in that parking lot. But off of the main spine is going to be a new entrance into Toy Story Playland. And the monkeys are going to make another appearance because they're following along the old figures of Jessie and Woody to come into this new entrance walkway. They'll appear as they've appeared in other parks, but now they're appearing here for the first time. The monkeys will make their appearance there, just on the other side of this domino wall. Again, designing Toy Story Playland, I never began to think that it would be in this many parks worldwide. I only thought about how to achieve the look, feel, and texture of a real toy scaled way up, and also to honor the legacy of the creators there at Pixar. I've been honored to work with many teams, all in the effort of bringing to life a whole bunch of very hard-working monkeys. Monkeys, give yourself a hand or a banana. You guys deserve it.
And that brings this episode to a close. Until the next time, it's goodbye from Lost Canyon.